Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Health Research Institute's first seminar of the academic year. And before, my name is Dr. Brianna Robinson. I am a professor in the Department of First Nation Studies at UNBC. I am Métis and a member of the Manitoba Métis Federation, but I've lived in Northern British Columbia for my entire life, and I'm extraordinarily grateful for all of the relationships and the welcoming that I've had from Indigenous peoples and communities from all throughout the province. And having today's opportunity is no exception to that. But before I go any further, as part of our land acknowledgement to Gitxsan Nation, I would like to invite our Chancellor and Gitxsan Elder, Darlene McIntosh.
Howdy.
Howdy.
We're training perfect. I just love that music it resonates and it fills my heart, and it's so nice that we connect with each other, and we know that you're allies. How wonderful is that? Now next week, wear your orange. Very important, right? So anyways, this is wonderful to be invited to this presentation. I've known Julie Morrison through First Nations Health Authority, and they've asked me a lot of times to be part of their conferences, etc. And she's wonderful. She has so much knowledge, very strong woman, even though she broke her leg. And, there's nothing bad I can say about her, because she leads in a really positive way to make changes for our Indigenous people through health. And how important is that now? I mean, health, generally speaking, is broken right now. So it's all of us need to partake in fixing it and being positive and always bringing that light to negative situations that happen. But then that happens in any place or any field. So you'll probably really enjoy conversation with Julie. So in saying that, okay, stand please. And before I start this, I want to also acknowledge Dr. Brianna Robinson, who she has done a fantastic job at the university, bringing equality and connection and relationship. She's been here forever. She's not that old, but she has. And she's such a good friend of mine. And this lady is so smart. And so if she talks to you, listen to her. So the first thing I want you to do is take a nice deep cleansing breath throughout your whole body. Nice deep cleansing breath. So we breathe into our body and we connect to the very important essence of who we are. And it is about self-care. You know, I know all you are so busy, you're multitasking every day, but when do you take self-care and take that little bit of time for yourself without your mind racing to do this, to do that, or you're a week behind? And, you know, that's past. We can't put our energy there. It's a waste of energy. We can't put our energy in the future. It's a waste of energy. So we have to be here, present, ready to do our work in a positive way. And the way the world is, it's not easy. I know it's not easy, but you come as leaders to whatever you're doing. And that's so important, because that's when you have to be grounded to beautiful Mother Earth. And it's like standing early in the morning in the east direction, and then the sun starts to rise. You can feel the heat on your body, the wind blowing your hair, and you connect with all. You connect with our beautiful environment who sustains us here on this earth plane, giving us everything we need. But do we ever think about that? Don't. Do we ever think about how lucky we are to have pristine, clean water? No, we don't. We go to the tap. So we stand there and we take that breath in and our feet sink into the deep, rich soil of Mother Earth. We can smell the freshness and this, how strong the earth smells. And it grounds us, presenting the day in a good way to us, because every day is a good day, but it's our mentality that says, oh, it's going to be a rough day, or I'm tired, or this or that. But those are just they're little things. And then we ground here and now, and we come together to support and to listen and to focus on what we need to do for the future. We're coming into Truth and Reconciliation next week. And how many are you involved in the events that are taking place? How many are you thinking that I should be wearing orange every day next week? When you wear orange, I know that you're an ally. And if we forget the orange, which sometimes we do, let's put an orange pin or a ribbon on and make all the difference in the world. Go down to the park between 2 and 3 on Sunday, 30th, and partake in the National Day, which is so very important. So I'm telling you, look after yourself, self-care. We, the Gitxsan Nation, have been on our traditional lands over 9,000 years and supported by lithic evidence. The changes have taken place over thousands of years supports the enduring strength, courage, and fortitude of our peoples. Our governance to the balance for balance on our and harmony with our brothers and sisters of other First Nations people. Lately, today's clans are Frog, Lasilu, Guusagetxw, Gitxsan, and Bearsus. Through this system, we know who our family connections are. Through our oral history, the use of legends told of our travels, our hunting and fishing territories, our trading practices with all peoples. And it is also a remembrance of the potlatch or batlatch, which is traditionally oral. So we invited you to the potlatch to be witnesses to the business taking place. And how important is that? May remember and hold steadfast in what Creator's blessed us with, and that is our traditional territories. Ancestors have always welcomed people to our territories. On behalf of Gitxsan elders, our youth, community members, and Chief and Council, it is absolutely our honor to welcome each and every one of you to our traditional territories. All my relations must see. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Chancellor Elder McIntosh. It's always important that we start these engagements in a really good way, and that really epitomizes the representation of the relationship that UNBC has with Indigenous peoples and communities in our region. And before I move forward and being able to introduce you to our guest speaker today, our incredible guest speaker, this is not moving forward for me. The Health Research Institute, I'm a fairly new member for the Health Research Institute, and there's a number of us that participate to organize these events and make sure that we are offering the university community a time and space to come together and learn about some of the priorities, the needs, the interests, and just the awareness of what's going on that's research related in our community. These are the members of the Institute that I'm so grateful to have an opportunity to work with. We are financially supported by the Sun Life Endowment Fund and the Faculty of Human and Health Sciences at UNBC. And we really are encouraging more people to get involved in our work and what we're doing on campus and beyond, because as we all know, what we do here does affect us outside of the university community. And it's really important that we are constantly mindful of this and mobilizing it in a good way. We have a number of upcoming events happening for the duration of this semester. Is anyone feeling the pressure this semester already? I don't know why. Everything just feels like it's amplified. We're on like warp speed already. So I don't know what's going on, but we have lots more to look forward to beyond today, which I'm really excited about. But most importantly, and why we're all gathered here today, is to welcome our incredible guest, Julie Morrison from the First Nations Health Authority. Julie hails from the Gitxsan Nation, and I talked to her before we were speaking, and I said, I'm going to let you pronounce your Gitxsan name because I knew I was having trouble immediately. So I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about herself. But she joined the First Nations Health Authority in 2017 and has served the Health Authority in several capacities, including crisis response advisor, a deputy director for emergency operations during the 2017 wildfires, health emergency manager leading the team's pandemic response in our northern communities during the COVID-19 pandemic, and most recently as the vice president of regional operations for the North. How lucky we are. Through this work, she has seen how resilient Indigenous peoples are and how our communities, natural leaders, and helpers have emerged during times of need. And before joining the First Nations Health Authority, Julie worked in more senior health and community leadership roles, including as health director and elected chief in her community. And she holds a Bachelor of Arts degree, a Bachelor of Education degree, and a master's degree in educational counseling. And as a wife with 3 children and 2 grandsons, Julie enjoys spending time in her traditional territory and learning more about her Gitxsan culture. So it's my pleasure to be welcoming Julie, who's going to offer you a presentation on the heels of the apology from the Canadian Medical Association yesterday, by the way. And it's really important that we are here and learning about what's happening in our own area and how we can be participating in seeing some progression in terms of reconciliation related work and actions that are part of all of our responsibility. So after she's done her presentation, I'm going to come back and join and navigate some questions, but I'd like to turn it over to Julie now and welcome her. Thank you very much.
Second, I have my notes. Did you want it back down here so you don't have to stand? No. Are you gonna stand? Yeah. Oh, okay. Then you have with the camera and all that. I can move the camera. It's okay. This is what you see. Was this for the notes? Oh, you can use this for the notes. You just have to press like that. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Great. So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to come and speak today to talk about FNHA. I'm really proud of FNHA, First Nations Health Authority. A lot of people don't know what FNHA is or what we do, so I'm really glad that we're able to share this information today. And I just want to thank Darlene for always welcoming us in such a good way, always grounding us and bringing us back to a place of peace. And if we could all be in that place of peace every day, what a wonderful world we'd be living in. So I just want to thank her again for being so kind with her words, because in work life and in life in general, you don't always get to hear anything positive. Sometimes all you ever hear is the negative. So it's really nice to hear some positive feedback once in a while. And I encourage each of you to share positive feedback with others whenever you see an opportunity. We've got to do that more in society. And I just wanted to say too that, so I'm Julie Morrison. My Gitxsan name is Guusagetxw, and I'm from the House of Wine, which is in the Gitxsan Nation, under the Wolf Clan. And so I've been born and raised in Kispiox, and both my parents my dad was a hereditary chief for the last 50 years of his life, and my mom is currently my head chief. So I've been raised within our traditional system, totally valuing and appreciating our hereditary system and governance, which Arlene referenced when she talked about the ballots. We use the term delegate in our Gitxsan Nation. So that's where all the business happens, and that's where births and deaths are recorded in the feast. So we have so much history and so many wonderful things that we could talk about and share, but for today, we'll talk about FNHA. And so we'll just start with a bit of a background. Okay, there we go. So pre-contact population within BC was like estimated from 200,000 to 1 million, but there are no real numbers about that. But kids were raised in a traditional system where they were nurtured by their parents, their extended families surrounded them, guided them, and everyone worked in the community to provide food and knowledge and sustenance. And we generally did our feasting, potlatching, ballots across the north, and we all know that that's how our education was done, is by orally teaching our young kids, and that's done by the extended family. So we had you see the ring around this gentleman's neck, and that's a cedar neck ring, and usually those were used by people that were head chiefs, and so that would signify what the work that he had done as a head chief. But in this picture, we're using it as a reference to traditional healing, where we had our spiritual healers, also known as shaman, in our nations, and they did spiritual wellness as a part of the whole health among the First Nations people in BC. We had oral history, which is continuing practices to confirm these deeply held beliefs in the environment. And there's special, like the healers were called into families when there was illness, and they would use it much like they do with Reiki, where they're moving the energy around, and that's what the traditional healers did. And so our people did that before contact, and we try and incorporate traditional healing in any events that we host in the region, and trying to encourage more people to utilize it, try it, and see how it works for them. In addition to medical supports, we don't encourage people to go one way or the other, but to try all avenues. I think it's really important. And then we did, like, we had diseases that came and devastated large portions of our population. Some instances, it was almost the whole community that would have been wiped out by the diseases that came, such as the smallpox. And then when we look at the health effects of colonization, there were so many things that came through colonization, such as the smallpox, influenza, measles, whooping cough. And our nations had never encountered these diseases before, so it was challenging for people to deal with, and we didn't have the care that we do currently have. And then the residential schools were a huge impact in our lives. I think most people would know a bit about the history on that. When the government decided to put our people in residential schools, it was to eliminate and take the Indian out of this child, as many know. And a couple of years, well, 10 years ago or so, when Dr. Ian Mosby uncovered the research that the government was doing on our people. I was at the AFN in Whitehorse, and our BC caucus heard about the research. So our BC caucus made a motion at the AFN to demand more answers, to find out more about what was done, because that was all hidden from us and everyone in the world. And the whole caucus at the AFN stood up in support of that resolution that we made as a BC representatives that day, and because we have no idea about the research that was done, what impact it had on our health, and that's what the leaders at the meeting wanted to know. We want to know more about the research so we could know what to prepare for and maybe make sense of some of the things we're seeing in our population. Because before contact, we were strong, resilient people that could survive in any environment. We knew the lands, we knew the waters, and we knew how to sustain ourselves. And so the intent around the residential school is to take that all away. And so we've been working our way back to that strength, that place of strength and resilience. So like I said, with the colonization, assimilation, and racism, we have issues around child apprehension, land disposition, moving all of our people onto reserve lands rather than on the traditional lands like we once had, where we could go freely, get the food we needed, and our people would have systems in place so we didn't take more than we needed. Nothing was ever wasted. If anything was taken, it was used in its entirety. So we had lots of ways that we were governing ourselves and the people and the land and resources in a good way. So when we look at the effects of the health, social determinants of health, the social determinants of health, economic conditions in which people live influence the health in individuals and in their communities. So who is responsible for First Nations health in BC before FNHA? It was the province of Canada and the government of Canada, and we were under the First Nations Inuit Health Branch of Canada. And so when I was a health director, it was through Health Canada. And I was lucky enough to be part of the meetings and discussions when we were starting to carve out what FNHA would be and how we're going to work and the terms of reference. And it's been quite a journey. We're just going into our 11th year or 12th year now. So we've learned a lot, and I think we come at it from a different perspective where we want to hear from the people, where it's supposed to be driven from the land, and community driven and nation based is what we usually refer to. So when we started FNHA, the funds transferred from Health Canada over to First Nations Health Authority. And this happened in October of 2013. And this was a direction of the First Nations Health. The direction for First Nations in BC is now undertaken by FNHA leaders, where we're, like I said, nation-driven, community-based is our #1 directive. And the First Nations elected chiefs overwhelmingly endorsed the framework agreement, voting for greater control by BC First Nations over their own health care. And last year we did have Gathering Wisdom, which we bring all 203 bands together. And they're at that Gathering Wisdom last year, they ratified the next 10 years of FNHA, the funding that we received or will be receiving. So there was a lot of happiness you can see in the picture, and there was a lot of people that really worked hard and that had a vision that we could live life a little bit differently, that we could be in control, that we have the resources within us to do the work. And so when we look at FNHA, it's a nonprofit legal entity and representative of accountability and that comes from the communities. So our direction comes from the First Nations elected chiefs in the communities and the health directors. Those are the people that attend our meetings. They guide us. They give us information about the challenges they're having in their communities. And we try and find ways to make sure we help in any way we can with our teams that we have. So when we look at the First Nations perspective on health and wellness, we want to make sure we're looking at the economy, culture, the environment, and social, understanding that we have a different potentially a view on family, where we look at the extended family. And so when we meet with Northern Health, quite often we used to have to always remind them that we when somebody's having a baby or somebody's passing away, that family needs to be there, and it's not going to be 1 or 2 people, it could be up to 20 people, but it's an honor to be there when somebody is passing away, to be with them, guide like to support their transition, support the family. It means a lot to our First Nations people. And just as much as it does when a baby's being born, we want to be there and hear the baby's first cry and celebrate that moment together as a family. Those are really important things within our First Nations culture across the North. So when we look at our guiding principles for FNHA, we have our vision, which is a healthy, self-determining, vibrant BC First Nations children and families and communities. Our values are based on respect, discipline, relationship, culture, excellence, and fairness. Our directives are community-driven, nation-based. We want to ensure that we increase First Nations decision-making. We want to improve services. We want to foster meaningful collaborations and partnerships, develop human and economic capacity, be without prejudice to First Nations interests, and function at a high operational standard. So when we talk about community-driven, nation-based, we do, like I said, we meet with our communities. We have 2 regional caucuses where all 55 First Nations communities come to meet. And we do 2 rounds of sub-regionals where we'll go into Northwest sub-region and the North Central sub-region and the Northeast sub-region. And our Northern region is exactly the same size as the Northern Health area. So we'll go in there, we'll present the things that we do throughout the year, and we'll get feedback from our leaders. And then that's where we increase decision-making. One of the things that we've been really focusing on this past year is trying to get information from our communities around the toxic drugs and addictions that are plaguing our northern region and hitting us harder than any other population. And per capita, we're higher in the north than in the bigger centers. And so we want to make sure that we're getting input from our communities. So we did a forum on addictions. We did a men's gathering. We did a youth and elders gathering. We've done the sub-regional meetings and the caucus. And this next week, we're going to do the women's gathering. And the intent around all of those events is that we've asked the same questions. So we're getting different points of view about what we can do differently, what they think could be something that could help their community. And so in thinking about that, it's like thinking about the kitchen table, how everybody's sitting around the table and everyone has an opinion about what's going on outside. So trying to get all of that feedback, I think, is really going to help us. But for the most part, we hear that we need more detox beds and we need more treatment centers in the north, so people don't have to leave as often. And it's more challenging when they have to leave. So we've gathered that information from all those other gatherings. After the women's gathering next week, we will take all of those questions and put them all together and see what we come up with. So we're really excited about the women's gathering next week, and we've gotten a lot of feedback. And we're doing things a bit different from the other regions in doing this, bringing everyone together. But I know they're going to have a addictions forum in the interior as well. So it's what we have to do. We can't figure this out on our own. We have to work together. We have to hear from the communities. The one thing with the role that I have and our team is that we hear from all 55 communities about when there's a traumatic loss in a community and when we lose young people to addiction. And we talk about toxic drugs a lot, but we need to talk about the alcohol addictions as well, because that's a big factor too. And also making sure that people understand about harm reduction approaches and that these things don't just affect us as First Nations people, they affect every ethnic group, right? And trying to get away from the stigma, but in still being real about what we need to do and understanding that our people weren't born this way, and this is a direct result from colonization and all of the things that happened to people that they don't talk about. So those are really, really deep and heavy thoughts, but those are some of the things that we think about as a senior team with the directors that we have on our staff and the managers and the whole team. We all work together to make these events happen, and we take input from everybody on our team about what we should do and how we can do things differently. And so that comes together with the developing human and economic capacity, always trying to see the potential in somebody and helping them elevate that up and moving up and making sure people are encouraged to further their education, because that's how we're going to make really big differences in our world. And when it said about me and my education on there, all three of my degrees are with UNBC, and I would never have gotten a degree if it weren't for UNBC, because with 3 young daughters at the time, leaving would not have happened. And so I'm just fortunate that I have such a supportive husband who took care of the kids every time I decided to go back to school, and then it's here, right? So coming here for 2 years in Terrace campus. So it really did make a difference having a university in the north for the north, right? And that's how we approach the work, is always trying to find people who want to work for FNHA. But in the northern region, we try and find people who are from the north, born in the north, and know the north, because it's harder for people that come from urban settings to understand the rural and remoteness of Guusagetxw, where you got to drive like 8 or 9 hours on a Forest Service road or fly in, or if you're going to go to Gitxsan, you need to fly in or boat in, right? So we have a lot of challenges around rural and remoteness, and when I talk about fostering meaningful collaborations and partnerships, I just came from a meeting with Northern Health where we have a First Nations partnership meeting where Northern Health executives meet with our regional team and 9 members that are voted in by our northern communities. And so we meet and we talk about things that are happening in health, say like if there's issues around racism within the healthcare system, or there's issues that our community members bring forward to us, such as the limited amount of detox beds, we can bring it up there. Today, we're talking about our terms of reference and how we can work together in a good way. We talked about the Northern Partnership Accord, which is a document that was signed by Northern Health and our executives to agree that we are going to work in this manner to continually try to make things better for the people that we work for. And without prejudice to First Nations interests is where we want to acknowledge those nations that are in treaty talks or live under a treaty already. So, and then functioning at a high operational standards is a goal that we've set for ourselves to follow. And there's a video here, which is going to play maybe now. No. And somewhere else. Oh. So you just have to share a different screen, just one. Okay. Let's take a look. I don't move it that lower. Yes. Okay. Oh, no. Sorry, guys, 2 seconds. Okay.
Talago kahus takidang.
We are the wisdom of our elders and the pride of our community. We are the respect we give one another and the responsibility we all hold. We are 55 First Nations, speaking 17 languages, living in...
Sorry, everyone. Just started over and I'll start it on here. Okay, that's a good idea. How am I going to start?
تقييدا تعالجوا قاهوس تقييدا
We are the wisdom of our elders and the pride of our community.
We are 55 First Nations.
We are the respect we give one another and the responsibility we all hold.
Communities.
We are 55 First Nations speaking 17 languages, living in 62 communities. Our territory stretches from 53 to 60 degrees north, covering 2/3 of the entire province. There are over 73,000 Indigenous peoples in the north, and over 70% are status First Nations.
Cares for the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and the physical.
We are our health, a holistic vision of well-being that cares for the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and the physical. First Nations wellness begins with our community members, our leaders, and our partnerships. Ancestral teachings suggest that all community members contribute to wellness. And this is the guiding belief of Northern First Nations health governance. But what does that actually look like? BC First Nations have adopted a provincial health governance structure consisting of 3 main entities. The First Nations Health Council is responsible for the governance, political representation, partnership development, and advocacy of BC First Nations. This council of 15 regionally elected members oversee the implementation of health plans and decisions made by First Nations leaders and communities. The First Nations Health Directors Association supports health directors and managers working with First Nations communities. This body provides professional development and training for health directors, as well as technical advice to inform decisions around healthcare. The First Nations Health Authority is responsible for the planning, management, delivery, and funding of programs and services in partnership with BC First Nations. It's Canada's first province-wide health authority to specifically serve First Nations. The Health Authority seeks to reform the way healthcare is delivered to BC First Nations through direct services and community engagement. In 2013, it absorbed the community programs and services that were previously delivered by Health Canada's First Nations and Inuit Health Branch Pacific Region. The First Nations health governance structure operates in 5 regions. The North is the largest of these regions. It's 617,271 square kilometers. That's bigger than the entire country of France. A total of 55 Northern First Nations governments provide political leadership to 62 individual communities. This makes for an incredibly rich diversity of language, cultures, and traditions, all of which are represented in the Northern Health Governance structure. The Northern Governance Regional Caucus is where First Nations community leadership come together to discuss and direct First Nations healthcare for the entire Northern region. To keep this work community-driven, Northern First Nations have further organized themselves into 3 sub-regions, the Northeast, North Central, and Northwest. Each of these sub-regions is home to a certain number of nations who rank priorities and direct the health authority through engagement. Communities come together for sub-regional health services gatherings during the year. This is where health directors, social leads, and other community members, including political leads, can plan, collaborate, and communicate about their specific and unique community health and wellness priorities. Each sub-region elects 1 member to the Health Council as a political representative and 1 individual as a community representative. The Health Directors Association facilitates elections for 1 technical representative per sub-region. Together, these 9 representatives make up the Northern Regional Table. The Regional Table serves as First Nations representation in regional healthcare discussions. This collaboration ensures that any updates or improvements to Northern healthcare considers a community-driven and nation-based perspective. The Northern First Nations Health Partnership Committee has representation from the Regional Table, the Health Authority, and Northern Health to ensure that equitable health services are available for all in a culturally safe way. Together, these entities and partnerships make up the Northern First Nations health governance structure. They make collective decisions and set priorities based on these focus areas, with First Nations communities at the heart of the process. It is through this cooperation that the voice of First Nations communities inform decision-making at the regional, provincial, and even federal levels. We imagine a future in which First Nations communities are some of the healthiest in the world. We are our health, and First Nations wellness begins with our communities and our partnerships. This is our future. How will you be a part of it?
Thank you. So some of the work that we do in our region and within all of the 5 regions of FNHA, we do a lot of primary care work, which includes we're standing up 3 First Nations primary care centers in the northern region, and each of our 5 regions are standing up 3. So we're standing up 15, and this is done in partnership with Ministry of Health. And the 3 that we're standing up in the northern region, one is in Chetwynd, one is in Fort St. James, and one is in Hazelton. And so these 3 sites, we do have operations directors that have been hired to work there and stand them up. So they're trying to get the buildings renovated. And Fort St. or Chetwynd actually has a doctor that's working right now. So they're the first one to get a doctor working. We do have one in Vancouver that's been operational, and it's called Luma. And Luma was already established and working, and they were just fighting to get money to make it work. And then FNHA stepped in and funded that site. So it's our first site. And then Williams Lake, I think, is going to be celebrating their 2nd year. They opened their site in Williams Lake where they're offering care. And so in these First Nations primary care centers, it's being directed by the communities that are in that area. So they're looking at having a doctor or a nurse practitioner, nurses. They want to have occupational therapists and physiotherapists coming into the centers if possible. Traditional wellness would have a navigator who could help greet at the door, and making sure that people that come in the door feel like they're welcome, they're part of the community. You see the culture in the building. It's meant to be really inclusive. And so we're working on those sites now, and it's really exciting work, and I can't wait to get them going. It'll help the workload that Northern Health carries right now. And we all know that many people don't have a family doctor, myself included, and that it's going to help get people going in to get the checkup that they need, that maybe they're not going to do because they don't want to go into emergency. They don't have a family doctor, and missing a crucial amount of time, sometimes if it is cancer related or something like that, or they didn't go for care early enough, those preventable things. So we're hoping that'll minimize the wait times and get people in sooner. Throughout the pandemic, we did stand up our First Nations Doctor of the Day, which was virtual and on the phone. And so that was really well received. And in the beginning, you could get an appointment within a day or 2, but now we've gotten so many people interested in it. It takes a couple of weeks to get an appointment now. But there's challenges around that as well, because you don't get to see them in person and you don't get to have that ongoing care. For nursing and nutrition, we have a team of staff that work on that, and we do have 6 nursing stations in the northern region where that's a first That's primary care, that's urgent care actually, at different times where they are trained in a higher level of skills so that they can help if an emergency does happen in there. We do run 24 hours a day in those 6 centers. And we do have 8 communities that we as staff provide the First Nations healthcare. And the nursing stations we just took over 2 years ago. It was operated through a different division in FNHA. It was operated through the Office of the Chief Nursing Operator, but now it's come to the region. So we have 6 in our region, and the interior has 1 and the coastal has 1. So there's 8 in the province. With our environmental public health team, they do a lot of the work in the community around the water, making sure it's safe after a fire. They go in and make sure the homes are safe, the buildings are safe. And with our mental health and wellness substance use team, they're the supports for communities. Somebody wants to go to treatment, they can contact our staff. And our staff can find somebody that may be a center that might work for them, knowing that not every center is going to work for everyone now, that there's specialties that need to be taken into consideration. And we have our funding and projects team, which helps our communities. We give land-based healing funds to every one of the 55 communities. We did last year and we're doing it again this year. So we have planners that can help the communities create a plan on how they're going to spend that money. We've made it so there's a template so that it's easier to apply for it and easier to report on it. And so those are some of the different ways that the funding and projects team can help. We have the health emergency management and crisis response team that really took a lot of the work on during COVID. And when we talk about partnerships and relationships, we built partnerships and relationships with so many different entities throughout COVID. We worked so closely with Northern Health and the Health Emergency Management BC. Those are the 2 bodies that we were constantly on calls with, meetings, and making sure that we got everything we needed. The communities, you know, and a little bit of getting triggered thinking back to those days when we were getting phone calls at like 9 o'clock on a Friday night saying this community is sending so-and-so and these many people, and so we had to make sure they had a place to stay and they had food and they had people coming in, and those are the things we were doing in the background and making sure that we realized people couldn't go shopping, so we started to go shopping for them. We'd be like, what kind of food do you need? So they didn't have to try to leave home or figure a way out, and knowing that money may be a challenge. So we started contacting people when they had to isolate and make sure that we dropped off the basic necessities, and we give them a list and say, what do you need here, here, and here? And so our team would go shopping, and they were even doing that on Christmas Day, just to make sure that people had what they needed and didn't feel alone when they were isolating. I know when our first community had a case, some of our staff drove there with boxes of activities for the families to do with puzzles and coloring books and things like that, to make sure that they could stay home for that period of isolation. Planning, research, and evaluation is within the research and evaluation is more a central function with FNHA. We do have our planning where we do work with our communities, and that is in partnership with our central teams at FNHA. Cultural safety and humility, we have 1 staff member that does work with our central team. Cultural safety and humility is something that we discuss a lot with Northern Health about these practices and how things go. With our team just this summer, understanding that I'm Gitxsan, I know my Gitxsan ways, but I don't know the other nations. So with our team this summer, we had a Gitxsan feast, and we divided our staff up, and I divided our staff up because it's something I've been thinking about for some time, but divided our staff into the different clans within the Gitxsan Nation, which are the Wolf Clan, the Fireweed, Frog, and Eagle. So I broke the team up into those, had called in some Gitxsan hereditary chiefs to sit with our team, and then we did it a Lakaboo feast because I got my mom as our head chief, and we we taught everybody that was like that day on how to deliver, how to share the things out, and we had fake money with FNHA faces on there, so it's close to a real feast, because that's the only way that people would be able to learn. If you go to one of our feasts, you'd be sitting on a visitor's table with other people who are visitors to the nation. And so you wouldn't really be able to learn. So thought if we have hereditary chiefs on those tables, they can say, this is what they're doing, this is why they're doing it. And so I thought it was a good way to start, but it's only the beginning. We'll look at other nations and how they do that so that our team can learn more, because we want to make sure that we're inclusive and respecting all of the First Nations cultures across the region. Engagement and governance, we talked about governance with the meetings. We have an engagement team, that community engagement coordinators, where they connect in, they have a certain amount of communities, they connect in with them and find out what their needs are, how they can support them, connect them to different parts of FNHA. We do have our communications. So we've done a lot of videos like the one that you just saw. We did one on our COVID response, and we're working on some recruitment ones right now and showcase how beautiful it is in the north, and staff that love working in the north and are from the north. And operations, they're part of everything we do, including driving me here today. The operations team are involved in everything. Tracy does a lot of our events, so she can set up all of our meetings, and she sets up like the big caucus meetings too. She knows how to do all of the contract work, and she's been mentored by our previous operations manager. So that's part of the mentorship, and then I've talked about that with our communities as well as First Nations people. It's our responsibility to try and encourage our younger people to see their skills and strengths and try and lift them up and help them, guide them and support them as they grow. So we really value that, and we value family in the northern region. Sometimes stuff comes up and we just tell staff, you know, family first, you got to go and do what you need to do. If there's somebody sick or somebody's passed away in your family, we have a lot of compassion and try and support one another. So this is how do we engage, sort of talked about that already, where we have the community engagement coordinators. We have 8 areas. And then the gatherings that I mentioned about the caucus and sub-regional gatherings. So we're just going to go into that season again, where we are going to go to Prince Rupert, Port St. John, and here in Prince George for the sub-regionals. Caucus is always here because it's a bigger center. It's able to house all 55 communities. And people like coming to Prince George because there's more things to do. It's really challenging to get people to come to a small community where there isn't a whole lot to do, because they want to get out of town, they want to have a break. And I can understand and appreciate that. And they work hard all year, they deserve that. So we try and listen that way. So with we have a lot of material that comes out of FNHA. So one of the biggest things is about paddling together, where we want to make sure that all of those areas work together. And as the vice president of the region, I go and meet with our senior executive in Vancouver, or I meet with the other 5 vice presidents, regional operations. We talk about what's going on in our regions, and we share challenges and successes, and then meet with the other vice presidents of FNHA and our CEO, Richard Jock, who is going to be leaving us in March. So we'll have a new CEO, and so we'll see how that all transpires, and just have lots of faith in all of the good stuff that FNHA does. I'm just, like I said, I'm really proud of FNHA and the work we do, and I'm proud of our team for the commitment that they put into every day, and for the laughs we have, some of the fun things we do in the office just to get by. Last February, we had a beach day where I was like, got the staff just go and get some decorations, make it like a beach. And so they had stuff all over the walls. They had flower leis that were put on people when they came in for lunch, and then made some virgin pina coladas and nice glasses and stuff, you know, like, got to do something different just to recognize the staff and have a good break. And February is a really tough month for people. So some of the other things we've done is like having somebody come in and teach us how to do moccasins, how to make a vest with some designs on it. Someone taught us how to do beading and different things. So understanding January is a really tough month too. And then sometimes we'll look at the staff and think, man, we've got a lot of people who lost somebody. We need to do something to pick up their spirits. So we try and do that as often as we can. And then right now we're going through lots of changes with staff coming and going. So we're being mindful about that and want to have fun at the same time and lighten the load. We know when we encourage our staff to come and talk to us if they're going through something, and just giving them a little more grace and latitude when they are facing challenges outside of work. And so some of the opportunities we get to do. And so this is thank you in a whole bunch of different languages that are common to the North and FNHA as a whole. And so for Gitxsan, it's Doisnism, which is thank you all. So open any questions and hand it back. And
Thank you so much, Julie. That was fantastic to learn and see so much about how the organization has grown and how the impact, right? How much, communities are actually being engaged in this work. So thank you so much. So we have time for questions. So if anyone has a question, please feel free to ask. Julie. Martin. Oh, okay.
Oh, sure, yeah. I was just wondering, do you like, first of all, thanks, like that, I had no idea there's that many services that you guys are involved in. That's pretty cool. I guess I was just wondering, as far as your like collaborations with like Northern Health and other agencies, are you finding that is helping them provide more like culturally dignified services? Or like what does that work look like as well? Because you're creating something amazing and beautiful that's even fresh, but I suppose I'm wondering about these other systems that are so troubled, with historical things and difficulties in meeting the unique needs.
you have to stand up there or
Be like, however you're comfortable.
so great question, because with Northern Health, we have a great relationship with. We do know they have a huge team underneath them, and the challenges about filtering that same mentality all the way down, but they are making strides and trying to offer more trainings for their community, their staff members, and they are very aware, they're very thoughtful in everything they're doing and trying to incorporate any of the concerns we bring forward. And my previous boss is now their vice president of Indigenous Health, who is her sister-in-law. So she's Nishka, so Nicole Cross. So she's been doing some fabulous work with the Northern Health to help advance that further and faster than it has been moving. But things take time to change, and systems as big as that would take a long time to change, but they are really mindful about our cultural needs. And when I think back to the fires in 2017, when we had a community that evacuated here, they came, and when they were here, they lost an elder and she passed away in the hospital. So when we talked with them, Northern Health let the family take the bed outside and they let them do their traditional smudging, which is what they have to do within a certain period of time. And they also had to burn the clothes within 24 hours. So we worked with the city and we worked with the fire department from the city, and they helped us find a space where the family could do that work, which is so important to the family and the traditions and protocols that they have. So, when we take the time to explain what the reasons are, people are really open to that. So
I know like the respectful relationships, of course, they're often to. It's so great, but something I found. That maybe the most ideal about it is that it's all online. Now, so you're learning that in isolation. Like there's no conversation and communication kind of place yourself and within it. So I don't just like hit on note about that, but I realized like obviously the now the sheer volume of staff and the resources needed and time and energy and stuff.
Well, it's like us, we're maybe 100 staff, including all the staff that work in the nursing stations, and we have a lot of different nations within our team. So I don't know the other nations' protocols and ways of being, I want to learn. So that's why we did the feast, and I will do, and we went and attended Balats in Fort St. James last weekend, just to see, it was one of our staff. And her dad they were doing his ballot, so we went and took that opportunity and learn. And so the thing is to find people who are going to something and just kind of come, and just attending and watching and observing, I think is really important. Just being open-minded, I think, is the key. Thank you.
You would feel free to stay seated. Rather than coming up, we might be able to shift the camera to you. It's really nice to see you 2 days in a row, one online and one in person. I really appreciate the depth of insight that you've just given to us today. I wanted to try and say to Gitxsan Nation, and also for the ways in which your leadership has moved through in all of these different ways across institutions, and your generosity today. And I know introducing people to a lot of really important parts of the program. So I have a little comment and a query. One thing that I feel, you said things take time, but I feel like I've only been on these territories since 2009, and I just see the impact of the way in which this kind of culture of thinking is having influences across so many different organizations. And one thing I turned around to Luke and said about the 7 directives, sometimes those for some people would just be a bunch of words, but I know and my colleagues at FNHA that we need to show as others that are engaging with FNHA how we are meeting and supporting FNHA, rather than telling FNHA to meet our needs. We need to step in and say, how are we helping your 7 directives? And I see that, for example, in things like when I've applied to RKE, the Research and Knowledge Exchange organization, where you need to be able to say what you're doing needs to fit with what FNHA is doing. So that's just kind of a reminder to people that there's a reciprocity there, and you need to show how not just can you give me approval, but how you're actually helping this important agenda. So that's the way of asking you about the fact that FNHA has a regional office, and we're so fortunate to have had you today. But there's also FNHA with the base for the whole province, and that some programs sit with the FNHA for the whole province, and some programs have more of a regional emphasis. So because this is a research institute group, I just wondered how you would describe how RKE, the Research and Knowledge Exchange group at FNHA, kind of fits with the northern region. And I think it would, because many people in this group may have to build a capacity to know how they can engage with the FNHA through the RKE path. Would you be able to speak to that?
Sure, we do have our team that focuses on research within FNHA and guide and mentor and influence the direction that research takes. And like when we talked yesterday, I mentioned that I've been part of a research group within the Gitxsan Nation for past 20 years, where they started to research lung QT. And so they isolated the mutated gene And now we know for certain that we have it, rather than before where doctor would say, oh, I think you're in the gray zone, you're okay. And now we know with DNA that it's yes or no. And it's made a huge difference in our world. But being involved in research is so important to honor the commitments that are made. And with the researcher that came to us, or our nation may have sought her out, but she made a promise about coming back and reporting, and she's consistently done that, brought back information to us. And the community part of it is so important, making sure that the community understands the value and has input into it. And with some of the research, we started with that, but we've moved into other areas as well, and making sure that the communities have an opportunity to voice their concerns. I know with the biobank, there was concerns with One Nation around the blood being stored. That was a big issue for One Nation because it went against their protocols, but they found ways to make it doable. So it's having that engagement discussion, finding out how you can approach it in a good way, and giving people that voice, I think, is so important. But we do, like you said, we do have our committee within FNHA that does oversee that. And Dr. Nell Wyman is a leader in that area. She's amazing. And it's something that I have a keen interest in as well, just because my family's benefited from the Long QT study, knowing that I have it in one daughter and one grandson. So, so much has come from it, and we can learn a lot from research, but we have to, our people have been so used to being researched, but we never seen the benefits before. It was always used in ways that went against us, and portraying an image of us that was less than favorable. So now we're at a point where we're like, no, this is where we will say yes, this is where we'll say no, because we want to protect ourselves, and making sure that people are using the information for a way that'll benefit the people, not other people.
Thank you, that's really helpful. And I think that we're still learning. As I mentioned, as a previous colleague of our Health Research Institute, but Sarah and Trina, our current colleagues, we're really aware how we need to elevate the understanding across campus about that, the ways in which we need to partner and connect, and that includes things in the region, like with your expertise, but also the right process and showing that this is actually something that is beneficial. So I really appreciate you emphasizing that. Thank you.
And then with the work we're doing with Dr. Karan as well, with the biobank, it's just amazing.
Yes. I'm gonna, so thank you very much. I'm going to move to an something else. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if you have any insight regarding the other provinces. You mentioned that really any province with authority, new. Is there any interest from the other provinces creating something similar, or?
I am not 100% certain, but I know there's some that are entertaining it, but it hasn't moved anywhere, which blows my mind, because.
And then how many years from starting to discuss it to implementing it to create the?
It probably was a couple of years in the developing before we transferred, where terms of reference were built and how it would operate for the basic part, and then transfer happened. And yeah.
As an old these wonderful halls, say getting the education. I'm curious to see what is, if anything, is being done with the senior members. And my thought process is coming from those that had gone through potential school and the 60s scoop. Life came in and then stopped our dreams, our hopes, our goals, and yes, more or less. But my way of thinking is, if you're still breathing, there's always the chance to start something. I mean, I can only hope to finish, but that's not up to me. But I'm wondering if there's other seniors out there who have these hopes and dreams and got shattered for one reason or another. And if there's anything being implemented for them to encourage them to step back and start.
Think, we are, like I mentioned, I think that we offered land-based healing funds, or did I say that? I don't know if I said that in this meeting or the other one, but we do offer funding to our 55 communities for land-based healing. And so that's an opportunity to get people from the community to go into the land. They can go berry picking and they can use it for language. They can use it for hunting, just getting people out and doing traditional activities, because what we've heard from our communities is that the culture is healing. And so we're providing opportunities. They create their own plan based on their community, what their needs are and what their interests are and how they think it's going to suit their members the most, right? Like watching a friend on Facebook, she's at a moose hide camp this week where they're learning how to stretch moose hide and do all of that good stuff. So there's lots of communities that are doing that and opening those opportunities for elders to come in and share their information. We're also giving out funds for crisis response training, for traditional wellness opportunities, so they can bring somebody in, and we encourage everyone to try the traditional wellness. And we're giving funds for men's wellness, like so men can get together and have weekly meetings and support one another. And there's one more, grief and loss, because grief and loss is hitting every single one of our communities and every one of our families. And if we want to help people, we need to be able to help them through the grief and loss and traditional wellness, where we're taking off some of the heavy energy and giving them an opportunity to talk about what's hurting, because we do lose a lot of people to addictions because of the grief and loss. That's a coping mechanism. And so we want to make sure that we're giving people that opportunity, but it's all self-directed. We give them the funds, say create a plan, and then we give them the funds to do the work. So I think that's where we incorporate a lot of elders, and so we know that our elders, a lot of people have gone through the residential system, were impacted in ways they don't always talk about. And even if they're looking like they're totally fine, they're carrying stuff that's very deep, and sometimes you get triggered, and we want to be able to support. And we do have the IRSSS group that work through under FNHA, as well as all the treatment centers that we provide support to as well. So
IRSSS is Indian Residential Schools to Elder Society, and the elders, just as an instructor here, I often get them to participate in my classes, and it's so great that that's available, and again, that knowledge translation about what's happening, and it's all oriented, all healing. So
we need to bridge the gaps between our youth and elders,
yeah,
because there's a lot of knowledge to be shared between both groups.
I just want to thank Julie one more time so much for all of her just knowledge sharing and just being here and just making sure that we're aware and informed and able to communicate that outside this room and into our own work every day. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we are good.